Yes, most college professors are terrible at teaching. If you've had any modicum of experience in a college classroom, you know that. You've sat through some really boring lectures that were so awful you thought, you know what, I'm jumping out the window to end it all. But then realized, crap, this class is on the first floor and it's not going to do anything. So today, we're going to examine why professors are such terrible teachers. Hi, my name is Dr. Brian Latimer, and I too am a college professor, so I'm not just some random guy criticizing those who live in the ivory tower. Besides, I have one too, except mine's made out of diggery. Save the elephants, kids. Besides, I think my gray beard here is pretty much a dead giveaway that I'm not just getting in front of a camera to criticize somebody who gave me a bad grade I felt that I didn't deserve. Besides, all of those people in my life are probably dead. Or at least dead to me. Historically, college professors have sucked at teaching, and it isn't just me saying this. Jonathan Zimmerman documented this issue that has plagued college campuses in the United States for over 3 centuries. And if an Ivy League professor says it's a problem, you know it's terrible. Zimmerman details how professors have historically sucked at teaching college students. This notion is derived from the fact that colleges and faculty pride themselves on research over teaching ability. Zimmerman highlights a pattern of how good teachers never earned tenure because they were so theatrical and not publishing enough. It is an open secret that most professors are hired to conduct research. That's why you seldom see them walking around campus or even in their office during their supposed office hours. It's because they're tucked away somewhere working on publications. And in some places, those publications better be in high-impact journals, whatever that means, because if they don't do that, then there's a good chance they won't earn tenure and are released. Think of it like a record company who lets go of a band because of poor album sales. Here's the kicker. Some of the best research professors out there probably get an audience large enough to fill up a phone booth. And I should know. Not that I'm saying I'm the best or anything, but at least I've won top paper awards at major conferences, so I kind of have an idea. And at those panels, my audience was a whopping 7. That was my biggest. 2 of the people in the audience happened to be my friends, and they were making faces during the entire time I talked. So, what are we doing here? But that's what universities want. They want their research professors going out there, making their names to make the school look good. And for who? A bunch of other professors who are out here trying to earn tenure themselves? People at this level are like Dr. Gregory House. They're more concerned with the puzzles than the patients. Most of them might not be massive jackasses about it, but they know what earns them money. Elite schools pay for them to research, and teaching takes a back seat because the thought is that the brilliance that exudes from them will illuminate the minds of those scholars under their tutelage. Well, that works in theory, because in reality, most students can't keep up with the level of what the professor's doing. Primarily because brilliant people see the coursework as elementary level. It's like that teen reaction video where they're playing Mike Tyson's Punch-Out and can't beat Glass Joe. You know, that scrub you face in the first match to teach you the game's controls. I was whooping on that fragile Frenchman when I was 7, and these kids couldn't do it. It was because I was ingrained with the NES. I grew up with it. I was focused on the machine. These kids never saw the thing before. They won't understand it. Then, if I were to try to explain it, they'd probably feel overwhelmed. So that's the research professor's excuse. They're at a large institution, they gotta get published, right? But what about those at smaller universities / or community colleges? Surely places that stress the teaching over research would be better, right? Well, in theory that should be correct, but in reality that might not be the case. I've taught at several institutions and I have heard horror stories from my students about the poor teaching quality that they receive from my fellow faculty. Now, yes, I take any comments that they have with a grain of salt because, well, I remember what it was like to be an undergrad, and hyperbole is a thing. But oftentimes I wonder, did they have it as bad as I did?
One semester later.
So when I was an undergrad, we had this professor that we called Dr. Ether. Dr. Ether was super old. When he got his PhD, there were only 4 elements on the periodic table: earth, wind, fire, and water. And that was it. And he should have retired a long time ago. He wanted to stick around, and the school let him do it. And so my department entertained this by giving him a 1-credit course where he taught students how to build a resume. And the reason why we called him Dr. Ether was because when he talked, he sounded like this. Today, we are going to talk about references. Like, I like to think that I am a decent student and I try to be as attentive as possible, but to deal with that for an hour? Oh no. Like, that was a struggle for me. And I'm usually pretty good and adept at dealing with people who are boring. So you can sort of see the plight that students are dealing with here, right? So why then are teaching professors so terrible at doing their job? I mean, they only have one job. How could they suck at it? Well, to answer that, you have to look at a couple of different factors. First, and this is more endemic of education in the United States, is the fact that the pay scale is terrible and has stagnated for years. My very first full-time teaching gig was $40,000 a year. I went through 10 years of college to earn my PhD, and this is what I'm getting paid. So that doesn't sound too appealing. I mean, if you actually had student loans, I don't know how you're going to pay for it if that's what you're getting. But then that's just the full-time people. We have a huge glut of part-timers, aka adjuncts, filling our ranks now. And those individuals only get $2,500 per 3-credit course per semester. Now keep in mind, full-time typically means a course load of 4 classes. So 4 times $2,500 per semester. You can start to see the math here. And so if that's what you're earning to do the thing, maybe you might want to look elsewhere. And so you get burnout and you leave. The second big factor, emphasis on big, is classroom size. For a lot of lower level courses at large institutions, they're taught in huge lecture bowls consisting of 200 students or even more. Now, I've taught in lecture bowls where I had 130 students, and I couldn't stand it, primarily because I can't directly engage with them all at the same time. That's insanely difficult. In activities, you might as well just forget it. So you're stuck with just the lecture. And if you're not good at the lecture aspect, then it's going to be a drag for students. So many of them will just stick to their phones, looking at social media, or lay back and inspect for holes in their eyelids. The only cure for that really is to be like me in a way where you are a roving professor, just going around the aisles, talking, because if anything, that kind of perturbs them and makes them think, oh, maybe I shouldn't be sinning like I am right now. Besides, I see some of the things that they look on in their phone, and dude, really, take that lewd stuff back to the dorm. Third and most importantly, most professors never receive any type of teacher training. That's right, we smart people who spent a decade or more in college never had a single semester of pedagogy. You know, learning important stuff like classroom management or lecture prep. We never got any of that. So while I was earning my PhD, I was also a teaching assistant, which is basically where most of us PhDs get our educational training. And I had an introductory course director that I would meet with, and for the most part, they would talk about the syllabus and how to make it look good, but never really give advice on how to manage a classroom. So it was basically, here's a syllabus, now go by the grace of God, good luck. Alright, fine, this is gonna go well. Fortunately or unfortunately, I'm a bad stand-up comedian, and I typically love to drop pop culture references that are way too dated, and make them cringe laugh at the things that I say, and for the most part it seems to be working. They're laughing and learning to some degree. I mean, none of them told me that I openly suck in the middle of my set, so there's that. But if you're a professor who doesn't have that kind of charisma to muster up, or you're not familiar with the material, chances are they're going to stick to what I believe is probably the most horrifying thing that any student can endure in this day and age: the PowerPoint karaoke. This is where the professor is just staring at textbook supplied PowerPoint slides and reading them to the students. They don't engage, they don't stray from the material, they're just glued to that wall of text and presenting it to them. And I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, but here we are. And if that's what you're getting, someone reading something to you, maybe you should just take a little bit of advice from what Matt Damon said.
You dropped 150 grand on a fucking education you could have got for $1.50 in late charges at the public library.
Is there a remedy for this problem? Well, maybe. The obvious solution is to include pedagogy courses, whether that's through professional development, everybody's best friend, or in grad school. It can be done. However, when that suggestion surfaces, the professor gets kinda cranky about it. And I understand, it feels like when that suggestion is made, they're trying to impede on your academic freedom. But the classroom experience might not feel like such a slog for all parties involved if you did it once in a while. I also believe universities wouldn't push for this change because they want research PhDs, not entertainers.
But that does not relieve you from your responsibility for this material. Now, I'm waiting for reports from some of you. I'm not joking. This is my job.
To be clear, I'm not putting the onus solely on professors, although I bet already there are comments down below criticizing that I am. You guys didn't wait till the end of the video before you made your judgments. So, But this education thing is a two-way street. It's not just professors. Students have to put forth effort and engage with their education. But nowadays, students aren't really looking for the learning part. That's kind of optional. They're in college for the experience. And if you need an example of that, just look at LSU's $85 million lazy river, and you kind of get the picture.
And there's probably a few of you thinking, oh, I'll Google that later. Don't Google it!
So, what did you think? Let me know in the comments below. Did you have any professors that were pretty bad? Did you have any professors that were pretty awesome? Leave them down below. Maybe I'll use it in a future episode. I don't know. But I do know one thing. My office hours are done, and I need you to get going.
Well, I hope you enjoyed my thoughts about why professors suck at teaching, and if you have any inclination to learn more what's rattling on in my skull, I've got a couple of options for you. First and foremost, I've got a book that I recently published on Amazon called Remus College, which is a fictional story about a dysfunctional Slack. You could say it's based on a true story, but that's neither here nor there. If you're more interested in the social media stuff that the kids are into instead of reading assignments, you can check me out on the following. On Facebook, I am the Angry PhD. On Instagram, I am Angry PhD BSL. On Reddit, I've got professor memes, and yes, I do have a website, Failing Upward, because my editor wasn't good enough to put it on the end slate, but here we are. Yeah, you can check out all that stuff, and I'll talk to you next time.